Welcome to another Habs Locker Room Report with the hockey coach, Gros Coach Francis, directly for the beautiful country of Thailand on Amazing Great Wednesday, November 15, 2023. Our co-hosts, Mr. Enortap and Marko are back in the house for another time.
Welcome to Hump Day, Coach. I never liked that expression, Hump
Hump
Day.
day.
Hump Day. Yeah,
Yeah, depends how you interpret it.
Here we go.
it has
We'll go
options,
straight
right?
to the mind without losing time. The subject of the night.
No.
A subject of the night. I took along the I did a long research. The Habs cannot
Yeah.
score anymore. This is the subject
Oh,
of
Oh
the
my
night.
goodness. Come on,
And
Panic,
coach.
I don't know
panic.
why we talk about this tonight, but we're going to go through around the Montreal Canadiens. I have a lot of a good stat. I did some search about how many goals and everything like that. So I think you're going to enjoy this. I won't go talk about that subject tonight for the Montreal cannot score any goal right now for the last couple of games. But we have a few people in the chat. We're going to turn around this very quickly. First of all, we have all the way up in the house. Leon Renault is in the house, followed by Danny T. And moderator captain takes some of Danny to be with us. Roy from Bangkok is already in the house at this morning. Good morning. Ron with Kings 20 is in the house. Ron, he sent me an email. I'm going to talk about his email the next couple of minutes, maybe at the middle of the show. I like it. I like it. Abination is in the house tonight. Gary Cornoyer, the UPS, is in the house. And Laval cannot capitalize with that one over there. It's 4-4. I'm sorry, I follow from Laval at the same time. Alger Calabro from New Jersey is in the house. Give us already some score around the league and American Hockey League and the NHL. And then we have Leon, Renaud, Danny, Enortap. Alain Vaillancourt from Kentucky is in the house this morning or this evening. And Rabinov follow all the way, follow him. And then we have Steve G from Colorado is in the house. Welcome back, Steve. Hopefully doing well. He's waiting for the Colorado Avalanche. Not looking good in Colorado Avalanche at that moment. And that's what we got so far in the house. 4 games in NHL tonight. We have already 2 games in action. First of all, the Flyers lead at 3-1. Almost at the end of the second period. Again, the Carolina Hurricane. Edmonton Oilers owes the Kraken 0-0 at the middle of first period. A little bit later during the night, we have the Ducks Avalanche. Fun to watch the Ducks this this year. If you follow a chance to watching one specific team, I would suggest to watch the Anaheim Ducks. A lot of great things going on with Anaheim Ducks and the new head coach. And finally, the Islanders play Canucks. And welcome back, Bo Horvat. And the Canucks tonight. It'll be interesting to see that. 2 teams on its front path or its front direction. One team going down and another team going up. We'll see if it's going to happen in this game tonight. I think Islanders lost the last 4 games, if I can recall it properly about that. That's what we got tonight to talk about. And Woody Snyder knocked the door. Welcome back, Woody. Another from Colorado. Thanks to be with us tonight. I didn't say no signal, so I don't know what's going on. I don't know.
Yeah, it's Danny stirring things up, probably.
I'm sorry again?
It's Danny stirring things up.
I can see people are saying that there's some buffering, but I'm watching on the other, like it's a couple, maybe like 10 seconds behind. I'm watching it on YouTube and it looks fine, but.
William McClary knocked the door. William, thanks to be with us. Don't forget, guys, to click on the like. That'd be awesome. And like we do at the beginning of the show, what we do, Mr. Marko?
Headlines.
Headlines. That's what we got at the beginning of the show. And we always start the same with the first one with Marko. Marko talk about tonight. One brick at a time. This is what I learned by Will Smith in 2008. Mr. Marko, I would like to talk about this a bit later, but that's what I learned at 2008 by Will Smith.
Will Smith. Well, hopefully that was. I guess that was before the Oscars, but it's it's very true, Coach. Big things are built one brick at a time, right? So, I was looking at a lot of the responses of fans, last night on the channel in particular, and people seem to be very frustrated. Like even your show tonight, Coach, is like Habs can't score. Okay, well, you know what? Like it's one step at a time here, guys. Like we just went through a set of 4 games here where honestly, the team is really, really starting to buy in to the fundamental aspects of playing a team game. And Martin Saint-Louis has said this before, right? Like, one of the mistakes that he made is that he was a little bit fooled by some of the results at the beginning of the year. He has like a plan, right? Like almost like a playbook that he has. And it's like he's like a teacher, right? Like before you go to the next chapter, you have to pass the first chapter that you're already working on, right? So I think earlier in the season, he had already moved ahead a couple chapters thinking that they had already learned those things, but he decided, you know what, we need to go back to the previous chapters because we haven't really figured that out yet. So he went back, and over the last 4 games, the team has been allowing many, many less dangerous scoring chances from the slot. Last game, they, for the first time in a long time, they actually had almost 2 minutes more time in the offensive zone than the opposing team. They're putting the puck in deep, really extending, their time in the offensive zone. So guys, like, it is one step at a time. Yes, there's certain guys that are not scoring right now, but overall, like, there's so many positive signals here. And I'm trying to find like the right analogy for it, right? But like, let's say, for example, you're trying to fix your, I don't know, your lawnmower, right? So as long as the motor's running, all the parts are working, as long as it's working okay, you shouldn't be too worried. Like, if the blades need to be sharpened after the machine is working fine, that's pretty easy to do, right? So it's kind of like the same comparison I would use for the Habs right now is the machine, the motor, all the parts, they're starting to hum together and work pretty well. Now, some detailed things like maybe putting a little bit more traffic in front of the net, being a little better on their execution when it comes to rush plays and things like that. But overall, guys, like, I really like the direction that things are going. It's one brick at a time. And I like the direction that St. Louis is taking the team here. So I want to remind people, like, yes, they're having problems finishing right now, but overall, there's a lot to be positive about, especially over the last 4 games.
Let's go to the next one. We have Mr. Marko Enortap, balance.
Well said, Marco. I agree with just about everything you said there. It was well laid out, and I couldn't agree with you more. I think the whole theme, as I've been sort of mentioning from episode to episode, has been about patience, and you have to have that foundation in place before you can get to where you desire that house to be, or what you want it to look like in the end. And so that's where balance comes in. And me, I look at a game like yesterday and even some of the games from prior, and they've been improving play. There's little takeaways that you can take with you that say, you know what, this is not a team that you should distress or panic over, because they're doing a lot of the little things well and they're improving on them. If they were going in the opposite direction, I would worry. For me, yesterday, really the biggest difference, I mean, besides the fact that Markstrom had a very good game and was able to steer aside many shots that Montreal threw his direction. I think they had somewhere in the neighborhood of 35 shots on net. To me, the problem yesterday was the passing. The passing was off, and passes that were made in player skates, passes that were made behind the player. When we see that in previous games they've gone offside 2 or 3, 4 times, and there's been disallowed goals because of it. I mean, those are all timing. They're things that we need to, yes, firm up over the next little while, but the positives are all there. The balance is there, and then trying to balance the whole equation is not an easy feat. It takes time, it takes patience, it takes dedication, it takes practice, and it takes learning from your mistakes, unfortunately. And that's what we're going to see pretty much all year. So keep patient, stay the course, and keep in mind that it's about a balancing act here. In the end, we'll eventually get where we need to get.
And Enortap, I think like both our headlines are very similar, right?
Yeah.
One thing that connects ours, and one thing, Coach, before you jump in with yours, is the culture, like what they're implementing right now, like, St. Louis was comparing it to the Lightning and the Bruins, how steady their culture is, and it doesn't matter. Like, you lose Bergeron, you lose Krejci, and the culture stays the same. So yes, we're missing elite talent, but if they can play like this all year, and this is the new normal, that they play this kind of disciplined game, then the players that they're going to add in the future, whether it's new draft picks, that we get, or other skilled players that we trade for in the future, they're going to come and they're going to need to play the same way that the rest of the team is playing, right? So it's not just going to impact the players that are on the team right now. It's establishing that culture so that future players that join will have to commit and have to kind of almost fit, the new culture, right? So it's so important, kind of what they're building, and that's what we like to see.
And who they bring in, Marco, like who they bring in the future, not necessarily through the draft, but that'll be a part of it, but also through free agency
Yeah,
or trades. That's going to be
yeah.
a contributing factor. Can they feed into what they're trying to sell?
They'll have to fit into what they're doing, right? Like, they have to buy in.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Awesome to hear that. We have, first of all, where Randy Walkman is in the house tonight. Randy, thanks to be the Hockey Nation show. We really appreciate it to be with us. And right now, we just finished the donuts. Mr. Dixon Automotive Group is in the house tonight. Welcome back. William McClary, of course, is about that. Me, I go to other direction. I don't know why, but I go with big decision. I think Ken Hughes have to go with big decision the next couple of weeks. First of all, the 3 goalies. Secondly, at some point, they will have to take a decision about the situation with Jake Allen or the goalies, like I just mentioned. But Sean Monahan, what's going to happen at the trade deadline. And then some point, it's funny because we said all the time, Martin, we said we have this year some debt. We have a lot of debt. But if you look about this, they don't have anything on the golden on the defenseman. They cannot put right now bench any defenseman at this moment. With Savard out, that complicates the situation. Like, they could not right now, like Jacky, 12 minutes per game, 9 minutes per game, 10 minutes per game in the last 3 games. And they cannot scratching him 1 game. They don't have anything, anybody right now. So it's a little bit concern about that for the Montreal Canadiens. If you look at Laval, nothing great as the defenseman. And now it's there will be an amazing impact for the Montreal Canadiens. So I believe that Kenya is going to have a lot of big decisions the next couple of weeks. The same situation happened last year. And the same time last year, Montreal was doing very well, like they're doing right now. And I think they will have to figure out what they're going to do with Sean Monahan and maybe Jake Allen and maybe other veterans at the trade deadline or the next couple of weeks for the situation. That is only my headline today or my big decision for Ken Hughes. We have to move on with other things. We got KLS in the house before we move on, guys. KLS is with us, and Jimbo Slowfoot is in the house tonight. Welcome back, both of you. Thanks to be with us. And don't forget, guys, to click on the like, so that'd be awesome. Let's move on, guys. The first thing we're going to move on, this is the game happening last night, the review game between the Montreal Canadiens and the Calgary Flames. Calgary 2, Montreal Canadiens 1. And I would like to have your impression about the game. Let's start with Mr. Marko.
Yeah, so I think Enortap and I touched a little bit on it in our headline, but again, like, to me, 3 weeks ago, whatever, we talked about after the Vegas game, we talked about they discovered kind of like a new gear or a new standard, right? And they kind of lost their way for a period of maybe 3 games where that effort just wasn't really there. But then over the last 4 games, 2 wins, 2 losses, like the record might not really indicate anything special. But when you really look, Coach, I'm curious to see what kind of stats that you pulled that you were mentioning earlier, but to what I've been seeing anyways, like most of the advanced stats are really kind of taking a turn for the positive, right? So last night, if I think after 2 periods, it was 9-0 in favor of Montreal in terms of chances off turnovers, and I think the game ended at 9-3 for Montreal. So, and Montreal was one of the highest teams with turnovers. I think they were like last in the NHL for turnovers so far this season. Another really, really poor area for Montreal since the beginning of the season was high danger chances allowed in the slot. And again, like last night, I think Montreal only allowed, I think, 9, and the average over the most of the season was about 18 to 20 high scoring danger chances, right? So really lots of positives. And like Enortap pointed out, maybe some sloppy execution in terms of some 2-on-1s, but there's very little that you can critique. Like, you can see that St. Louis has been talking, and it's so cool because sometimes you hear St. Louis say stuff in the press conference, and then over the coming week, you can see players start to mention it here or there. So you can see that it's sinking in. About 2 weeks ago, he said, "Yeah, we need to have a deep mentality," is what he said, and you can hear players saying that, like, "Yeah, you know what? We when they weren't playing very well, they were saying, yeah, you know what? We didn't have that deep mentality. We weren't getting pucks in deep." And that's what's changed over the last 4 games. They're starting the games off a lot better. The first period against Calgary, they were getting pucks in deep, and it really helps because again, the less time that you spend in your zone, if you're extending offensive zone time, then you're going to make a really good kind of case for yourself, right? So last night, really positive overall. Markman played a pretty strong game. The only critique, I guess, that you could say, other than the fact that they just missed a lot of good chances, like Caulfield missed, an open net. It was kind of like a really restrained angle. Josh Anderson, I just feel so bad for the guy. It's going to come soon. He seems like it is starting to affect him a little bit, but it looks like he's really being supported by his teammates. So the only criticism maybe from last night, I would say, is that Markstrom didn't have a lot of guys in front of him. But this is, again, it's one brick at a time, right? Like now that we're spending more time in the offensive zone, once we've done that for 3-4 games, then saying we can be comfortable with, okay, now we've mastered the mindset of playing deep. Now I can move on to really focusing on how do we get better kind of traffic in front of the goalie, stopping at the net. How do we execute better on odd man rushes, things like that, right? So that's going to hopefully improve, the conversion of some offensive chances. So last night, guys, it's just a couple bounces go our way, and it's a different outcome, right? But I don't think the results really kind of was a true representation of what the game was about. Montreal definitely deserved to win that game. Montembeault played okay. He played good. He really didn't have a lot of dangerous chances to contend with. I didn't like the first goal. And in a game like that, where the other goaltender is really stopping everything that he can see, you just can't have your goaltender give up one okay one, right? So very close game. The result wasn't there, but still a lot of positives to take from it.
Mr. Enortap.
Not much left to say. Covered it well, Marco. I came away with a lot of positives yesterday. To me, they continue, and this has been a theme all year. They continue to dominate the faceoffs circle. Yesterday was 50-50, so as long as they're not losing those battles, means you have possession of the puck, which means you have a greater opportunity to generate something offensively. I thought, two guys that stood out in my mind yesterday that really had good games. Three really, but two forwards in particular were both Anderson and Slafkovsky. If you look at the stats line, you'll notice Slafkovsky is continuing with that theme of getting himself more confident and more assertive. He led the team in hits. I think he had 4 or 5 yesterday. You can tell he's trying to get himself into more advantageous positions to try to score. Anderson, again, he's just snake bitten right now. Like, he's the kind of guy that once one goes in, you're going to see about 4 or 5 go in right after that, and then we'll be singing his praises again and over evaluating it or over inflating him at that point. But right now, I think the opposite is true. The problem is he's making things, I think, a little bit too predictable. And I wish he would just change. Like Marco, a lot of times you said he's a one-trick pony. And I'd have to agree. And I think players know that. Goalies know that. So if he can just sort of establish himself a little bit more and maybe use a little bit more edging with his skating and stop at certain points instead of always going 100 kilometers forward and heading towards the net, maybe he has to cut in once in a while. And I think he's tried that because we've seen a whole bunch of times he's now resorted to his backhand to try to get a shot on net, but that's not one of his fortes, unfortunately. The wrist shot, I think, is a better gauge of where his success lies. So I look at those things. Yesterday, the shots category, they won. The hitting, they out hit Calgary. I think the takeovers were pretty much even. The faceoffs were even. So those are all good signs. The other player, just to end it off, that I was impressed again with was Gouli. I thought in many of these statistical categories, he really shined yesterday again. In defensive work and also knowing when to get involved offensively. So those are all good signs. I just don't want to see certain players logging so much time. Matheson was one of them yesterday. Coaches talking about Jack-Eye not getting enough time. I say he's got to learn. He's got to learn. I don't think the answer is you sit him. Maybe for a game, that's okay, coach. I get that. It's not bad sometimes to take a step back and view the game from a different perspective. But I think he just needs to play more and he needs to get involved. If he makes a mistake, he needs to learn from that. The answer is not, we're going to give you less time so that you make less mistakes, or we're afraid you're going to make mistakes. It's more get out there. Yeah,
it also probably help if they gave him, a steady D partner too. Out of all the guys, he's probably kind of like the most rotation. Yes, Lindstrom did score Montreal's only goal last night, but it was a real struggle for him in the defensive zone. Not really the best partner, I think, for Jack-Eye. But yeah, listen, that's what this season is about, right? Is letting players grow through these growing pains. Again, it's one brick at a time, right? That's my headline with him. St. Louis was very clear. They were focusing on, his play underneath the hash marks. They like that he's improving there. I don't think he's completely there yet, but once they're comfortable with that, then they're gonna move on to him defending on the rush and his defensive zone coverage on the rush, being a little bit more organized when the team is when a team breaks in the offensive zone, right? So one step at a time with him. I think most coaches realize that you can't over coach players. That's one thing St. Louis is really good at. He has a good feel for how much information young players can take. And I think Robidas kind of the same way, right? You don't want to overload someone with too much information. So I think right now they're giving, Jack-Eye baby spoonfuls of things to learn as time goes on. But I think it's worth it with him because of the physical package that he is and the type of player he is. If he can commit to learning those things, then he'll be a really interesting and very unique asset for a Montreal Blue Line moving forward.
Yeah, agreed.
We want to welcome back Zev Lecab, Claude Richard, the Donuts are all in the house. Welcome all of you. Thanks so much. Nicolas de Gauby-Bonneau, he's in the house again. Thanks so much, everybody. And you guys, you go to other directions. So I'm going to show you the goal last night. Who was on the ice again?
Jack-Eye, but he wasn't the only one. He wasn't the only one.
But Monahan, Pearson, Gallagher, again, every game, they're all on the ice. Let's see what's happening about that goal here. About this, we have a face-off here. This is the first thing happening there. We have three white flame at the top right now. Like Marko said all the time, man-to-man right here. Montreal is right now still at the bottom right now. They have three red. Montreal Canadiens cover two white. This you have to figure out here. Pearson is going to make a mistake here. He see now he can't figure out which one he need to take. Gallagher, no problem right there. At the bottom, we are good. Jack-Eye cover his man. Langstrom cover his man. But Pearson now he have to figure out, and Monahan is behind the play at that moment. Now Pearson is going to take the wrong one. Look, Monahan, where he's going. He's going right there at the same location of the Pearson's going. And now that open up the guy on the back door on the side right here. And now it's Langstrom problem, Watson. What I'm doing, I'm going to cover the guy behind, or I'm going to cover the guy on the is coming on to Montembeau. And now we have Gary alone and Jacky laid behind that because honestly, he was checking the guy in front of the net. But we have a number +1 in front, and that's happening. The goal right there. So again, this is the line. I believe me. With all the respect Monahan bring to Gallagher and Pearson, they are the worst line. Montreal Canadiens level score 5-4, and they take the lead. I'm sorry about that.
Who scored?
About this
Who
game.
scored?
Fun to
Who
watch.
scored?
Seven, a wrap. Well, no, wrap up. By the way, they really dominate the third period. 37 against 24, and we know at that moment. Now it was 4-1. It was 4-1, Marko, right?
4-1.
Yeah. So they come back with 4 goals straight. Fun to watch. A little bit. A team can score goal.
They pulled dope after the first period too, because he allowed 4 goals in the first period.
Yeah, I'm sorry about that. So I just want to sharing a little bit what happened during the goal. Again, the first one, it was really a surprise move by Kadri Speedorama with, like he was not expect to get that pucks coming. Of course, you would like to have a Montembeau save that one, but it's happened sometime. It's just like that's why I would not blame Montembeau last night for what happening before Montreal.
He played a good game, but Coach, like looking back at that goal, you can point out certain players that, but again, like you mentioned, right? Like I've been harping on this, is the man-to-man system. Like it's just impossible to keep organized, right? Like as soon as one guy loses it, then everything breaks. Everything it's like, I think zone is so much more the way to go, or at least moving more towards a hybrid. I just don't like it. I don't like it.
Yeah, but the thing is, if they're playing man to man, tell me how you lose your man, because that play you showed, Coach, was exactly that. Monahan moved up to try to attack the puck rather than stay with his man, knowing that would be a possibility. And
there was 2 players down low, and there was 3. So Monahan was down low with the 2 defensemen when there was only 2 Calgary guys at the front of the net. I don't know what Monahan was doing all the way at the bottom of the zone, because both defensemen had guys. So to me, again, I have to see the play like another 10 seconds before that. Why was Monahan all the way down there? Where like it looks like Monahan is the guy that originally lost his man, or one of the defensemen lost his man. I don't know. That's where it gets confusing, right? Like that's why like I like a hybrid system, because you can start man to man, but then as soon as the opposing team does like a switch up, and they switch things up, then at that point the team can kind of like default to a zone defense. So that way, it's just a good way to kind of like turtle in your offensive zone and basically make sure that the front of the net is covered. It's kind of like going back to the house, right? Like going around the front of the net and just making sure everything's secure, and then spreading out from there, right? So it's kind of like chickens running with their heads cut off once a guy loses their man. So not a fan of it.
No.
We have a question from Gary. Gary asking you about, do you think having a 3 goalie rotation is a problem the way of them is playing right now? How the team playing?
Well, right now it hasn't hurt them. It hasn't really hurt them. And if anything, I think Primo has been very patient. He's been working with the goalie coach as well. It's not a situation, I believe, that will be long term. I think something, if it isn't, will very shortly be in the works in terms of solving this situation. And I think it has to do with the signing of Montembeau before anything gets sort of done. So I think it'll be resolved before it becomes an issue, because I don't want to see Caden Primo sitting around too long.
Yeah, like I don't see it impacting anything right now. Like it might be annoying for the goaltenders, but guys, I think this summer, and a couple times we've talked about it, I would love for the NHL to expand the roster number that NHL teams are allowed to have, so they can carry 3 goalies. Again, we've had this discussion over the last, I think, couple of years that we're not going to see a lot of Vasilevskis and Hellebucks moving forward, right? We're more and more moving
Not
towards
anymore.
a platoon kind of system. We're seeing goalies being, ending their careers a bit younger, maybe than they would normally, like a Carey Price, because of the wear and tear on their body with the new techniques that they're using. So maybe it's time for, I don't know if we're going to go all the way to baseball, where you have, goalies that are coming in mid game that are specialists closing a game or opening a game. But to me, it would be interesting to see the game of hockey evolve so that you can carry three goalies, just because I think it makes more sense and it would be better asset management for NHL teams. But right now, it is what it is. I think Montreal is not the only team, by the way. I think there's three or four other teams right now that are carrying three goalies. Like there's
Yeah, I
Detroit.
think so. Yeah.
I forget the other ones, but there's a couple, right? So it's not ideal.
Yeah.
Like Enortap said, there's, he's not going to just let Primo, kind of like go for nothing, right?
Rot.
I
Yeah.
read something today. There was another podcast, I think, on the French side that was talking about how Kent Hughes wasn't super happy that he has to negotiate with Montembeault right now. But it is what it is, right? Like he needs to kind of work something out. Apparently, there's some reports that Hughes is not the biggest Montembeault fan, and so he's very unsure of kind of wanting to sign him at a big number long term. So I know we were talking about this last show, guys. I don't know. It'll be very interesting to see where this goes, because I'm hearing some reports that Hughes is very hesitant to give Montembeault a long term deal. But we'll see. Be interesting.
I would agree with that.
Yeah.
Well said about that. I agree with you for sure. The only problem I can see for goaltender is take off a spot of the forward or a spot of the defenseman. That's the only problem I have with that one. Because if you want to go on the road or whatever it is, you have three goalies in the roster. That's not the best scenario as a roster in NHL. You prefer to have 13, 14 forward versus 7 D. You can carry on, and that will helping the Montreal Canadiens at long term if they can figure out that situation with Montembeault, Allen, and Primo. I think I was said me. They just wait for someone to get hurt. I know it's not the right thing to say that, but that's what they hope they can happen.
It's not the solution, though. That's just an answer, a quick answer that they'll have based on the situation that arises. But if you do carry three goaltenders, you can't have one of them in the position that Caden Primo's in. A guy that needs play time. He needs to develop. He's not going to learn unless he gets in game situations.
His agent must be so mad right now.
Yeah.
About that, I just want to check a little bit, give you a little bit information what's going on. The Montreal Canadiens review in November so far. They are at the half of the number of the game they play in November. They play 14 games this month. Right now, in 7 games, they have only 2-5-0. They have 0 goal, a 4 goal a plus this month in November. So they scored 3 goals, 2 goals, or 1 goal. And then in October, 3 of the 9 goals was on the with at least a 4 goal or plus. Finally, compared 1 year ago, they have 1 point less on the standing of the record compared last season and 2022-2023. So that's what happening for the Montreal Canadiens 1 year ago. What we're going to talk about this tonight is the app news. It's about the cannot score. And we then cannot score. We're going to talk about this fun information I have for you guys tonight, right now, here on that. First of all, cannot score. Here we go. The last 8 games, Montreal Canadiens scored 19 goals. It's about 2 points, a little bit over. The last 4 games, 2 goals or less. 12 goals is only a 5-5 at the 19 goal this the last 8 games. 5 of the last 8 goals is by the defenseman, and the last 4 goals is straight from the defenseman for the Montreal Canadiens. Just give you an idea the situation with the Montreal Canadiens as a team together at the month of November. Now, who cannot score yet? Anderson, 16 game with 0 goal. Jake Evans did not score in the last 15 games. Remember, he scored the first goal for the Montreal Canadiens and for the season on the breakaway against the Toronto Maple Leafs. RHP, 13 game with 0 goal. He did not score this season. And then Alex Newhook, after he scored 3 goals in the first 5 games, did not score the last 13. And the Laval Rocket guys take the lead 5-6-4 right now. Another goal by number 44. Is it Calipo? I cannot recall it. Brisson, maybe 4. I don't know.
44 is Calipo.
Only 4. Number 4. Brisson or Bisson. Score.
Yeah.
Then Pearson, after he scored 3 goals at the first 5 games, he has 0 goals the last 11 games. Caulfield, only 1 goal in the last 9 games for Caulfield. And Sakoski had 1 goal this year, 16 goals. This is the resume of what's going on with all the Montreal Canadiens right now with the attacks only for the forward. I did not focus on the defensemen. So I would like to hear from you guys. Give us what's going on, and we're going to go through this. We're going to pick up a couple of comments for the chat at the same time.
You mind if I go first on this one, Enortap?
Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead.
So kind of like I was saying with my headline coach, St. Louis was talking about this in his press conference because this was the big conversation today in Habs land, right? So good on you. This is what Habs fans have been talking about today. So you're right to bring it up. So St. Louis today talked in his press conference about 2 things. There's collective play and then there's individual play. As coaches, their main focus is collective concepts and team play that will generate scoring chances. Now, some members of the press were kind of pressing him and asking, are you concerned that some players are going to stop buying in to the system because they're not able to score? And he was, to me, he had the right answers. I don't think they're going to stop buying in because they're getting scoring chances, right? If they weren't getting scoring chances, then yeah, it might be harder to sell my system to the players. But I think if you ask all the gets a decent amount of chances. There's some players on this list that remember we were talking about who our biggest disappointments this year are, and Newhook was my choice. Newhook, you can be a little bit concerned because he's not really getting that many scoring chances. Caulfield, my God, he's getting so many scoring chances. We talked about Slafkovsky. Evans actually had a pretty decent couple of games, but his role isn't really, in terms of top 9 players, right? So this is perfect, coach. So there's collective and then there's individual coaching. So St. Louis' job is mostly doing the concept, the team concept, right? The collective creating scoring chances by how they play. But they have all these skills coaches like Adam Scott that's going to be working with the players individually. Like you were joking around about last night or on Monday, coach. Maybe a Tim Turk, comes in and helps them. But this is a great exercise. They had kind of one of those kind of cardboard goalies out, and Slafkovsky had a pretty impressive showing. He had 3 shots in a row from the side doing one-timers, and he nailed it in the top corner 3 times in a row. It's pretty impressive. He has a pretty good shot when there's nobody in front of him anyways. So to me, there's two things that are going on, right? So St. Louis and his coaching staff are more focused on how they play as a team. Is the system and the way they're playing creating scoring chances? Are they playing good defense to get the puck back so they can go back on offense? And the answer is yes. Like we talked about, the last 4 games in particular, they're spending way more time in the offensive zone. So to me, these things are more individual development that the that the individual kind of skills team can work with the players on. It's also confidence. There's a lot of things that go into it. And we was talking about it today. It's not really about technique, a lot of the times. It's really about just shooting, as it's really about the right. And maybe that's one thing that Slafkovsky could really work on is, and maybe Anderson too. Remember, I was using that that quote from Mike Bossy, right? When you're in a slump, just release it quick and aim for 5-hole because you're pretty confident it's just going to hit the net. When a player gets the puck from a side-to-side pass, and if he stops the puck and tries to stabilize the puck, then the goalie has time to get set. So really, it's just about how quickly you can kind of fire that puck. So you guys understand, there's a really big difference. There's nothing structurally wrong with what's happening right now. It's just the confidence of the players, and maybe a little bit of work to get some confidence going. Now we know they don't have enough elite players, but that's fine. Like, we know that's something that they have to address. So right now it is what it is. We're more focused on the process of the whole team learning to play the right way. Almost the whole team is doing that. So I wouldn't be too concerned with this. But that's just one man's opinion.
But they don't score goal. That's the biggest problem. They can go on balance all day long, but until they don't get the play chemistry together, I think that was not helping the 5-5. But this is the reason I said, because the 5-5, they cannot score a goal for the last 10 games.
Well, no. So, Coach, you're saying that some of these lines don't have chemistry, or they're not able to finish?
They cannot score.
Okay, but scoring. So
but scoring make goal. goal make W. So you can have all chance like all night. We're looking good. We're looking great here. We go at 2-1. We get there, but we cannot score. So until they not score, they have to make something chance about that one over there. So you have to put maybe more your offensive player together and not split with your line 3 like they have right now, forward, if you want to go Jacob and line.
No, but Coach, so if you just simply move one player to another, if you don't empower them to improve their individual skill to convert chances, it's not going to change. It's the same players. You're moving around deck chairs on the Titanic, as is the expression, right? Like, you're not really changing much. So it's to me, again, it's more about working with the players individually. Anderson, whether he's playing with Suzuki or with Dvorak, right now he's just having problems converting. Has nothing to do with the style of play that the line is playing. Has very little to do with the chemistry of that line. It's just he's not converting. Creating scoring chances. You can't score goals without creating scoring chances. We agree on that, right? You can't score goals if you're not creating chances. So I think we all agree that over the last 4 or 5 games with the existing line combinations, that they're creating more scoring chances. I think it's hard to disagree with that. So
I disagree with that. I don't see more chance right now.
What?
Who have more chance to score the goal?
Yesterday, I thought Montreal did.
No. Who have the chance? Like, they have a lot of chance. New Hook have a lot of chance to score.
No, we've already talked about New Hook. No. I told you New Hook.
All right. Yeah, so New Hook have no chance to score a goal right there, right? So Anderson now you're going always to back on the same player, Anderson. He has 0 goal this year. Whenever you can have the 67 more chance to score the goal, you have to score only one every time because you just make a line together. They're going to end. Okay. Your Pearson have a more goal chance now? No, I don't see that. No. I don't see Monahan have a more chance to score a goal. I don't see that too. Pearson said you have more chance to score 5-5 with New Hook, Anderson. I don't see that too. You're going to resume with 3 names of players. Let's go. Give me your name now, you players.
Well, so I've already told you, right? So what I would do right now is, you're right. New Hook I don't think is bringing enough to play on with Suzuki, right? So Pearson, though, has the experience. He had some success earlier. He's hit a couple posts. He's had some good chances. I would move Pearson up with Suzuki and Anderson, right? So hopefully Pearson can bring a little bit of finish to that line, because Anderson is opening up a lot of space. Suzuki, we know what he can do. And Pearson has a very, very good NHL shot. So I would make that change. You switch Pearson with New Hook. New Hook goes down to play with Monahan and Gallagher. He injects a whole bunch of speed on a line that's a little bit slow. Maybe you give him a very specific job, which is, hey, this line has been on for a couple goals against recently. Your job is to, use your speed, make sure that you're always on the right side of the puck. The goals and the points are going to come. I just really want you to focus on one job. You guys are going to be kind of a shutdown line. You give him that kind of job. And then the line for Dvorak, Slafkovsky, and Caulfield, we know what Caulfield can do. And Dvorak, he is what he is as well, too. And Slafkovsky's been playing well. They arguably have been creating the most chances out of all the lines. The fourth line actually had a pretty good game as well, too. Like, they were buzzing. Like, Ylonen had a good game. I like the fourth line last game. So that's what I would do, Coach.
I wish they would bring in Pizzetta a little bit more often, because he's been playing very, very hard, and he's been creating opportunities as well. So you hate to see him sitting down. I'd like to see Slafkovsky a little bit higher up in the lineup as well, right? Like, I think he should be playing more steadily on that, either the first or second line, and give him that opportunity. And maybe they will once he starts to connect a little bit and his confidence is indeed going up. So it might be something to look forward to moving forwards. But
another option, Enortap, instead of switching Pearson and Newhook, you could actually put Slafkovsky with Anderson and Suzuki, and you put Newhook with Dvorak and with Caulfield. That would be another option that you could try.
Yeah.
But I think moving Pearson off that line makes sense, because there's a couple of different benefits to Pearson. Like I said, I think he can score. Like, he's not like a 40-goal scorer, but he's scored 20 goals in the NHL. He has a good shot, and we're kind of showcasing him too, right? So it wouldn't be a bad idea to get him some production as well too.
So why not bring down a new hook with Gallagher, Pearson, and bring Montreal with Suzuki and Anderson?
Because I don't think Newhook's a center. I don't think he is.
No, I don't think so. He's a better winger. His skill is not. It's not in being a creative player. Like, he doesn't have the same kind of hockey sense that other centers need in the NHL. He makes a much better winger, where he has a little bit more limited duties, and he's got the speed and the shot that can create that as well. So I'd like to see him on the wing.
Awesome. We're going to go a little bit around the NHL, if you have time to get there. About that one, I can figure out where is NHL right now. Here, NHL, and then we want to talk about the Oilers and the Minnesota Wild.
Okay.
Do you know
Oilers
why?
lose 2-1.
Sorry.
Marc-Andre Fleury trade to the Edmonton Oilers.
Ooh.
Is that your proposition?
That's my proposal.
How much is Fleury making now?
3.5.
Yeah, that's pretty tough. That's pretty tough for them to fit. What are you saying?
Now they put two players, Jen Mark and Holloway, on the long-term injury reserve that open up more money for them. About that.
Well, when did Holloway get injured?
Last game.
Oh, did he? Okay.
Yeah.
I don't know, Coach. Like, it seems a little risky. Like, I don't think Edmonton has any wiggle room to make any more mistakes when it comes to goaltending. I think Fleury, I don't know. Like, I get it. Like, he has the pedigree and everything, but I just don't see it as a really safe move that they would need to make, to be honest.
He's not going to move. I mean, he had a hard time already being traded the first time to get to Minnesota. As a matter of fact, there was a lot of rumbling that he was going to go to Toronto. He didn't want to make that move. That was nixed. He's got a young family as well. I don't think he wants to pick up and leave and go to Edmonton. And it's probably his last year. It's hard to do.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I'm not sure I would make that one. If I'm if I'm Ken Holland, I'm not betting my job on that one. That's for sure.
And that would be a Band-Aid too, right?
Yeah, which is fine. They just need something to get done now.
Calgary Flames, the Toronto Maple Leafs. We trade Zadorov to the Toronto Maple Leafs.
That would make so much sense.
And apparently, from everything I'm reading, it's a done deal they're just waiting for the Leafs to come back from Sweden, where they are now. So
The big question with this
it makes
is,
sense. Yeah,
the big
yeah. How do
question is
you create the space?
no, the big question is, are they going to get Tanev and Zadorov? Is the big question.
Well,
There's
that's the
rumors about that
speculation.
too.
But what are you giving up for that?
Yeah, like well, Calgary, like Toronto, you don't have a lot of prospects in the bank, right? So you're not giving up Nyes or anybody like that. So who was the kid that was playing center for them at the beginning of the year? Eaton or whatever. So one of those young guys that made the team at the beginning of the year, but are no longer playing. I guess those are some assets. They're former second round picks that you can maybe convert into something, and then you're giving up a first round pick. So Calgary, they're
Leafs don't
definitely
have
going to
one.
be. Does Toronto have one this year?
No, I don't believe they do. I can check, but
Yeah. You know what
I
the
don't
really
believe
good
that they
news
have.
is? Coach is that Montreal owns Calgary. I know there's a lot of rules and different different conditions around the pick, but it's either this year or 2025, right? So I like the direction that Calgary's going here. It means that Montreal is probably going to get a pretty nice pick out of that one. That's the Monahan pick, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Actually, Marco, they do have their 2024. They don't have their 2025.
yeah, yeah. So if for me, if I'm Toronto, it instantly changes the whole makeup of your decor if you're able to get Zadorov and Tanev. That changes everything. Even just Zadorov, to be
But are we
honest. I'm a big.
saying, but if that happens, are we saying Calgary's throwing in the towel for the year?
I think from the reports, Pierre LeBrun was reporting that at the GM's meeting, that was all the GMs were talking about is Calgary is listening on pretty much everyone right now. So I think they are looking to pivot. It's really going to be they're going to take their time. It's not like a panic sale or anything, but from now until the deadline, you can pretty much all their UFAs. You can pretty much count them that they're going to be gone.
Wow.
Yeah, both of it back in Vancouver tonight. Vancouver looking good. What are your expectations for Vancouver?
I think they're going to call him Boo Horvat tonight instead of Bo Horvat. That would be the first thing.
After the presentation, the video for sure.
Yeah, yeah.
Look, it's 15 games that they've played so far, and you got to give them credit because they're standing on their head. They do have some very good players, not a problem. I've always maintained that they have some good pieces. We're seeing a top year out of Elias Pettersson. We're seeing Demko. I think that's been the biggest difference. Last year they didn't have him for the majority of the year, and we saw what that caused. This year they have him, and I think that they're was it the Smith that they picked up as their backup?
From Montreal, yeah.
Yeah, so they have a decent backup too, to relieve Demko so that he isn't overworked. The defense, Quinn Hughes is having another great year to go together with the Miller's having a very good year as well. Besser's, scoring again. He seems a little bit happier this year. So they have a good nucleus there. Will they stay in second place in the Pacific? I doubt it, but I still say they'll be in a playoff position. I don't think that they're going to drop off the face of the earth and land outside of a playoff spot. At least the way things are going right now.
Yeah, Coach, you remember Will? He came on the show. I think last year. He's a big Vancouver Canucks guy, so I've been having a lot of conversations with him. We can have him back on if you want. He's a big Canucks guy. 3-1 Seattle over Edmonton. Yeah, so for me, the Canucks, I think right now it's one of those teams that is a bit of a brush fire. Everything that could be going right for them is going right. Everything, like the shooting percentages are very high. Demko's save percentage is crazy high. I think they'll level off. I don't think that they have enough depth, and their decor is really, really actually not that good, to be honest. So I think that because of how badly Edmonton and Calgary have come out of the gate, they've obviously put themselves in a very, very strong position here. So I don't think they stay number 2 in the Pacific. Like I think there's going to be some teams that come on here. Like just, you pretty much assume LA and Vegas are going to be 1 and 2 for sure in the Pacific. And then not sure what will happen after that. But I think in the end, they battle, maybe for a wild card is probably where they'll end up. Maybe like the top wild card position. They have high end players. Rick Tocchet is exactly what St. Louis is doing, right? Very much like I view Rick Tocchet, Rod Brindamore, and St. Louis kind of like in the same category, right? Good player coaches. They want their team to play, with structure, but play very intense hockey. So Rick Tocchet is probably going to be the Jack Adams winner this year if they can make the playoffs. To me, he's the real MVP because they have elite players, but overall, there's some holes in that lineup as far as I'm concerned. But pretty impressive. Islanders, not liking where that's trending. I know. Like I'm even surprised that I know you're a believer in them. Like they have a lot of solid, kind of veteran players, but Lou needs to kind of make a decision here on kind of what's going on with that team, or the organization needs to make a decision on Lou, in my opinion. But that team needs to
the latter.
Yeah, I think that team
the latter because he didn't do himself any favors or the team this summer when he signed those contracts, the long-term contracts, those players. I think that in the long run, that's going to really hurt the Islanders. I mean, the only reason I kind of maintained that they would stick around and probably be a bubble team for a playoff spot, a wild card, is what it comes down to, and that's always goaltending. And they do have not just one, but a very good second backup goalie as well. And they do play. They do have a very good defensive core, and so if you can keep the other team from scoring, you stand a chance every night, right? And that's the only reason. But offensively, they're not getting the job done. And Bo Horvat really, I don't know. That's another bad contract, I think.
I don't know if it's a bad contract. Like, if I was Kyle Dubas, that would have been a job I would have waited for more than the Pens, because I think, if I'm not mistaken, like, how many years does Anders Lee have left? Like maybe 3. It's not like it's not like San Jose or some other teams where, yeah. Like you have some aging.
He's got. Yeah, Lee, I think, has 3 years left, but he's up in the 7 million, I think, that he's making.
So, they're not in the best position, but like
you got.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just saying they have some bad contracts that, I mean, Matthew Barzal obviously is a great player, but he's up at 9, I think 9.2 or something. You got Bo Horvat's at 8.5 for the next, I don't know, 6 years or so. Lee, we talked about. Who else is there? Pajot as well. He's making.
He's got 2 years.
$5 million.
Brock Nelson.
He's got 3 years.
Yeah, Brock Nelson. How many years does he have left?
He's got this year and next year, so he's at $6 million right now.
It's not ideal, but like
who else?
There's ways to get out of those, right? Like, like you look at like a team like the Sharks, right? Like I'd much rather be the Islanders than the Sharks, right? Like the Sharks have nothing in the cupboard. They have like contracts like Vlasic and Couture. Like it's almost like you have nowhere to go. Like you're just completely trapped. With the Islanders, you do have a couple of bad deals on some aging players, but a GM comes in there, maybe a year or two, you take a hit on a couple of those, like you eat some money, and I think, like you said, they have top goaltending in the NHL, good young decor. I think there's a lot of ability for the Islanders to pivot out of this and almost like rebuild on the fly. But they need to make a decision here, right? Like they keep kind of like doubling down on this older team. And at some point they're going to have to make a decision, but they're kind of spinning their wheels right now, I think.
Yeah, exactly.
Tell us a bit more about Buffalo. What's going on over there?
Yeah.
What a
Go ahead,
mess. What a mess. Yeah, I mean, yesterday's news of Tage Thompson probably breaking, I don't know if it was his finger or his wrist, does not bode well. They're saying it could be a 6 to 8 week absence, and you just can't afford it. Like, they don't have the depth right now. You cannot afford to have somebody of his caliber out of the lineup for any extended period of time, especially having come out of the gates as they have this year. Like, they have a huge hole to make up so far. Like, they're riding, I think, either third or fourth last in the East right now. To get into a playoff spot is going to require them to string some games together, and for God's sake, they have to win at home. They're horrible at home. I don't get it. But and goaltending hasn't really held up. I know that they've had a couple of good games out of Devin Levi, but I don't know if you're putting all your hopes uh, on him to get you there. It's not fair to him, and it's not fair to the team.
Holy cow, Enortap. Randy just put in the chat. Nelson, $6 million for 4 more years. Okay, so everything I just said about, oh yeah, okay, well they have a couple bad contracts, but nothing they can't dig out of. I take that back.
No, and the other thing is, Marco, just going back to it. I mean, pretty soon Noah Dobson's contract's going to be done. I think he just has 1 or 2 years, so he's going to want to pay off.
Yeah.
And guys like Pellick already, and who's the other guy? Pellick and Pullock are both there for the long run. Yeah, and Mayfield's another one that they signed to, I think, 6-7 years, and he's getting on in age as well. So I don't know. They're going back to what we were saying. They've dug themselves a huge hole. They didn't do themselves any favors by signing these players to such long contracts and relatively high salaries, and they're going to pay the price, unfortunately.
So, Coach, just my take on Buffalo real quick before we move on to Winnipeg. To me, this is a great cautionary tale for Montreal, right? So we talk a lot about rebuilding, right? But there's a difference between breaking down your team, like tearing your team apart and selling assets and collecting assets, and then rebuilding. Rebuilding, technically, is only once you use all the assets that you've collected through your rebuild, and then you start to construct your roster. Buffalo is still, in my opinion, their rebuild is just starting because they've done a great job of collecting assets, lots of really good assets, but there's still some roster construction and rebuilding to do, right? So it's interesting for Montreal, right? So we've collected all these assets. Buffalo has all these great young players, but there's only 50 NHL contracts that you can have, right? So at some point they're going to have to, and same thing with Arizona, right? They have so many contracts, so many draft picks and assets. So it's kind of a cautionary tale for how Kent Hughes and Jeff Gordon need to go about this, right? So Buffalo, I think they're at a stage where they have all these assets. I just don't think that have the right roster construction yet to be competitive. There's a lot of amazing pieces there. Like if I could trade with Buffalo in terms of the assets that they own versus what Montreal owns, I would do it in a second. I think Buffalo has much higher end assets than Montreal does, but they're still constructing everything, right? So I don't think that they're ready. I think Ottawa's closer to a roster construction that makes sense. Their goaltending is a bit deeper. Everything else. So if I had to choose between two teams that are further along in their rebuild, not judging the assets, but just how the team is constructed, I would pick Ottawa above Buffalo and Detroit and Montreal right now. So Buffalo, clearly a lot of people had a lot of high hopes. They finished the year really strong last year, but maybe again that's on the kind of like strength of just some really high production from some really high end players. But I just don't think that the roster construction is there for a winning team yet. What do you think, Coach?
Because when you talk about Buffalo, I was thinking about the fact, okay, they have a problem between the pipes. That's the first thing. They don't have a solid goaltender like, Ottawa got Corpusalo or Detroit have Uso. They don't have those kind of goaltender yet. It's not like the greatest goalie, but at least they get experience. They have a couple of years in the NHL. But then the defenseman is a little bit strange to me. They have two young defensemen, three maybe. And then after that, they have Johnson, Clifton, and that's for me is a problem they have right there. So they have a problem defensive with no goalie, and the defense is not strong enough with experience yet. This is a big problem on the defensive zone coverage since the beginning of the season. On offensive, but I think they have every time you have a cleanup, a rebuilding team have to clean up. Okposo is one of them is going to have to be out. Alderson is under 28 years old, but he struggled with this concept of Granado. I believe that's a number 2 there. But Buffalo
Gergensen.
Buffalo
but he's
are
a good
2 years before they really become the Ottawa Senator. When I said that, like Ottawa have Ketchup, Norris, whatever he was hurt, but still, Suzla, Patterson, Sanderson, they still have a lot of good core. Maybe like Toronto Maple Leaf a couple years ago, Ottawa was there. That Buffalo are still missing like the Peterka, the Jack Quinn, those young players they have, and they are not ready yet to pick it up. Those old players they have in the lineup, when you remove them, and you pick up those kind of players. So for me, Ottawa was a bit behind.
Kind of like what New Jersey did, getting Palat, like moves like that, right? Like they need to convert some of those assets that they have to get not old, like like a 33-year-old washed up guy, but like a veteran player to come in, play some key spots on defense, like you said, Coach. To me, that's kind of the model. Like even Anaheim, you're seeing Anaheim perform better. They went out and got Killorn. It was a really smart move for them. That's the kind of moves that Buffalo needs to make. Because they have, you could say, like on defense, they have elite talent. It's kind of the opposite of Montreal, to be honest, right? Like, they have really elite talent, and now they just need to kind of like flesh it out.
Defenseman Rasmussen, we don't talk yet, but I think he's another young defenseman over there. I think they should have a little bit. I wish they could get Kudos last year over Johnson and Clifton. I think Kudos would be perfect match with them, or Luke Shine with the Buffalo Sabre. I think that would be a good match over there. And now you're absolutely right. They need a player been in the playoff for
that. You got Owen Power, which helps, right? But you're right. They need that experience as well. It's not just Dahlin and
they're both left-hand D, Dahlin and Power left-handed.
Exactly.
Shot.
Exactly.
Yeah. But one thing you have to remember too, Coach, is if I'm not mistaken, Buffalo has the longest streak in North American sports for playoff futility, right?
I heard like yesterday from the chat was the Jets at 13.
Oh, I thought it was Buffalo. I thought it was Buffalo that had the longest.
The New York Jets in sport look like it's 13.
Oh, all right. Yeah, it could be. It could be. You might be right about
That's why I heard. I read this yesterday, but I don't know for the football. So yes, he's right. I don't know.
Yeah.
But
either
right
way,
about Sabres.
Either way, there's a lot of pressure there to make something happen. I get that. So at this point, I would look at, like, even though, it's kind of weird. Like I was a little bit critical of Yzerman because he kind of like sped up his rebuild. Like I think he was a little impatient and signed all these veterans, and I don't think they had enough good pieces to really start doing that yet. We'll see how it plays out. But I think Buffalo's in the position now where they have so many good assets. Like, my God, like I'm jealous of like some of their prospects they have in the pipeline. So time to start converting that. Like, I think they can afford to be a little to kind of like fast forward a little bit, bring in some key veteran talent, I think there's whether it's Kulik, like that's a really really strong guy playing in the AHL right now. He's a really really sought after prospect. But do you really need a Kulik to play in your lineup if you're Buffalo, or would you rather convert that into a right-handed defenseman that can come in and play
Yeah,
with
I
Buffalo,
think
right?
I think that's the greater need right there is to get a little bit of experienced right-handed
Yeah,
defenseman in there. And the
yeah,
other thing is not only the assets they have. I think they still have there's 7 or 7.5 million under the cap right now, so they
yeah.
have
They have
money as well.
money. Yeah, yeah,
I think a guy like Pesci for Carolina, right defenseman.
yeah,
Pesci, yeah,
Like
yeah.
Colorado a couple years ago, they get um, Devon Tace. Usually got Ryan Greaves. Now Pittsburgh get Ryan Greaves. Those kind of player like you patch up their first pairing as a defenseman number 3 or 4, bring physicality, uh, not the same style like Dallin, but more something you don't have. I think that's what I think that would be good for them, and I think a
Yeah.
bit more depth on the top forward like Palat you talk about. I'm trying to searching right now players around.
Boone
Like a trait where the
Jenner.
Kings did very well, I believe me, is Kevin Fiala.
Yeah,
Kevin
yeah, yeah,
Fiala
yeah.
passed a good hole with the Los Angeles Kings. A team
yeah.
struggle with money right now. They tried to make a move.
There's
Um,
not that many of the. So I remember, Coach, I sent you a list. I did a deep dive into okay, so who's going to be the Kevin Fiala of next year, right? And so I don't know. So two things on what you said. So first of all, the first thing I thought of when we were going through what kind of right-handed defenseman could Buffalo add, and there's not many good right-handed defensemen. So right away, I'm like, okay, now I
They're hard
kind
to
of
find.
feel better about the fact that Montreal got Reinbacher number 5, right? Like, because again, like so much of a premium on top right-handed big defensemen, right? So as we're going through the list of what big right-handed defenseman could Buffalo get, immediately you think like there's not a lot. So it just made me think of Reinbacher. But in terms of players that are coming up UFA, that might be a Kevin Fiala situation or a Pacioretty kind of situation that teams are just desperate to unload them. I don't know if it's going to be the same way because the cap is going up. And I went through cap friendly and I looked at a lot of the different teams. There are some RFA players that might be interesting because of the fact that there's some teams that are kind of up against the cap and they have these pretty good young players that they might not be able to sign, because of the fact that they're just too rich. Like LA, for example, you've got Byfield and you've got what's the other kid's name there? Can't remember his
On
name.
LA.
Yeah. Let's see.
Addison?
No, Kaliev.
No. Oh,
Kaliev.
Kaliev, yeah.
Yeah,
Kaliev
he's
is
going to
the
be.
RFA, right?
Yeah. So there's so that's what I was looking for, right? Like restricted free agents that are probably going to need a pay hike, but maybe on teams that just don't have the space for them because they're in a position where they need to compete now. They already have deep lineups. Like those are kind of guys that I was looking at more so than free agents. Like there's not like other than kind of Nylander, Stamkos, players like that. There's not a lot of really good unrestricted free agents. And there's not a lot of teams that are going to be as cash strapped that are going to want to get rid of, a Pacioretty or something like that. I need to do a deeper dive, but if I had to guess,
It
like a
would
team like
it would be
Buffalo,
interesting.
sorry, go ahead.
It would be interesting to see 2 years from now because they might have to
Yeah,
delay that whole process if there's
yeah.
a better crop of UFAs available, Marco. I think that might be the direction, and instead they might look at a trade possibly that deals with some of their draft picks and or prospects to get somebody that can fit in now and for the long run.
I think they're more likely to go. Like I think Montreal will have to get veteran presence. The more that I looked at the list, guys, I was kind of against the idea of signing Monahan long term. But the more that I look at the list, I'm like, there's not, if they can get Monahan for the right money, there's not that many better options on Monahan if he can stay healthy, to be honest. So going through the exercise of going through the UFAs and the different options on cap friendly and everything, it made me appreciate, the potential. If you can secure Monahan at the right term, at the right price, my thinking on that is evolving, we'll say. I think the biggest opportunity for Montreal would be kind of like a Doc and a New Hook kind of trade where they're more targeting somebody in the same age group, that can come in and solidify their top six. Imagine if they could get if let's say LA is not able to really pay Quinton Byfield, that might be interesting, right? Like that would be a really interesting fit in Montreal's lineup. Even Kaliev, right? Like Kaliev, you're looking for a left-hand shot on your power play because you don't really have somebody to draw attention away from Caulfield on the left side with his right shot. Kaliev is your guy. You remember them playing World Junior together? Kaliev was scoring even more goals in that World Junior than Caulfield was, right? He's not the fastest skater, but he's a big body and he has a lethal shot. So interesting options out there. I think the interesting thing is you look at teams that are just not going to be in a position to really kind of pay those guys, but should be interesting to watch.
I didn't Marko ask you about that. Now I put this out. Ask you about November 13, a show both Enortap and Marko believe Montreal would finish at or near 500 record. Do you still believe that?
Wow.
You want to go first, or shall I?
I'll go first. Listen, like I didn't anticipate that they were going to be playing this well in terms of team concept, right? If so, I'll answer it this way: if they're playing the same way they did in the first 10 games, I don't think they'll finish close to 500. If they stay healthy and play the same way that they've been playing the last 4 games, they have a shot at finishing around 500 because the way they're playing now, they're going to be in most games. So there's going to be hot streaks. There's going to be times where they struggle to score, like coach is pointing out, things like that. But they're going to be in games because they're playing the right way. So we'll see if they can be consistent playing the way that they are in the last 4 games. I think they'll be close to 500. If not, if they play like before, I think they're bottom 5 in the league.
Well,
Pierre
right now,
scored his first goal of the season.
Who did?
There's another Engvall.
Oh, okay.
From Vancouver. That's we didn't talk about him when we were talking about some of the bad contracts, but anyways, you know what, Alan? They're 7-7-2 right now. That doesn't surprise me. I think that's pretty much their capacity. If there's team or the roster remained intact for the rest of the year, I would say they have a very good shot at least finishing 500 or slightly under. The problem's going to be, I don't believe that this roster is going to be intact come trade deadline time or some other things that might happen through trades just prior to that as well. So unfortunately, you might start seeing, maybe even some injuries coming into play. I don't know about that. I mean, I'm not going to bring that into the equation because it's not really something you can project. But the trades and the trade deadline time, those things, you can rest assured there's going to be at least 2 or 3 players that are going to be moving, especially if the price is right. And you're going to see the team suffer because it's going to affect your lineup. Now, having said that, you don't know if they're going to bring up maybe a player or 2 from Laval, like a Roy, and he starts to do what Harvey Pinard was doing last year. So it'll be interesting. I think they'll be close to it, but I think they'll be slightly under 500.
Coach is going to be so disappointed.
Me, I still believe 73 points.
73, yeah.
Yeah.
Just because they can't.
I think at some point we have two factors I would say to you, other affect injuries. The trade deadline, what kind of move they're going to do at the trade deadline.
Yeah,
That's the first one.
yeah,
And secondly, it's like one at that time. After that, okay, who we bring on the roster? They going to maybe call up, I don't know, like Hoa or Farrell or some kind of movement there on the roster could affect the standing at the end of the year. Um, that's the reason I believe at 73, 75. Now, if you look about this, I did some search last night. I was boring, don't know why. And if you look about the Western Conference, they have a lot of bad team over there. Like 73 points should be about five in the bottom NHL. But because they have a bad start from the San Jose Sharks, the Oilers, the Calgary Flames, the Seattle Kraken, I missed one team, Chicago over there too. Um,
yeah,
yeah, five team, six team over there, and then on the Eastern they have right now, the Columbus Blue Jacket out at the bottom, uh,
yeah.
with and Ottawa Senator. I only believe one or two teams can go up. And I feel like Montreal could finish at 73, 75 points and finish seven in the standing at the end because the bad start on many teams on the Western Conference could complicate the change of the standing at the end of the year. That was something you have to pick up. But
Yeah.
again, I
You
expect
Edmonton is gonna, you know,
that's the team I expect
Move
will
up.
be a little bit better for Montreal Canadiens. But if you look about San Jose, Calgary, um,
Oh,
those kind
Calgary.
of team right there. Seattle Kraken. I think Montreal going to finish in the most at the same number of points Seattle Kraken.
Yeah, maybe
yeah.
even Nashville,
No, I think Nashville is actually. I was saying this
Oh,
in the
and the
chat
team I
yesterday.
forgot is Minnesota and Nashville on the other
Minnesota.
side. So it's two teams right
Yeah,
now at
Nashville.
4, 5, 9 over
Nashville,
there.
I could see. Yeah, you're right.
I don't
You're
know about
right.
Nashville. Like, I get a feeling that Trotz has a mandate to win some games there. So he's got O'Reilly there. They brought in some other players like they moved out Duchesne, but I think if you based on what he did in the draft, he's looking to make moves and make something happen. So I wouldn't be surprised if they try to add here and try to kind of like they're not at a point where they're looking to even retool. I think they want to compete now. I don't think ownership in Nashville. Like, by the way, guys, have you seen the attendance in San Jose? Wow, like it is really really sad. Like it's really dangerous actually for the NHL how bad it is. Like San Jose was a rocking place to go watch a hockey game, right? Going to the Shark Tank. Like remember how much
Yeah,
atmosphere?
but they were
But man,
spoiled, Marco, for many, many
yeah,
years.
yeah,
Very good talent. They were always in the playoffs. They seemed to go far. They were just snake bitten that they could never win the
yeah.
cup or at least go
Yeah.
to the finals.
But they need to give something for those. Like those fans have like right now in Montreal, right? Like it's not a winning team, but there's things for the fans to focus on to be excited about. What is there to be excited about? Other, I guess, Will Smith, but he's not up there. What is there to be excited if you're a San Jose Sharks fan? You're in cap hell for still quite a few years with some of the contracts that you have. You don't really have any young, exciting players to be watching.
Look,
So
you got
I
to
think
sell. You
Nashville,
got to sell Celebrini, right? That's
you got
your
to,
hope.
yeah, yeah. So to me, I wouldn't be surprised if Barry Trotz and Nashville ownership are looking at what's happening in San Jose. It's a very similar situation, right? Like Nashville's been a very competitive team for a long time. Everybody's really happy with how successful Nashville has been as a hockey market, but hasn't been successful just because the team has been very consistently successful during that time. So can Nashville afford to do a full rebuild like what the San Jose Sharks are about to do? I don't know,
I
man.
don't think they, but I don't think they have to, right? They have at least three or four solid pieces that they can still build on.
Yeah,
But I don't anticipate them finishing too high up, so they will probably get a top 10 pick. I would suspect.
mhm. I don't know. We'll see. Maybe.
The only problem in those markets like Carolina and Nashville, small market, and they almost those small market. I believe in NHL, you cannot rebuild. Like you can retools, but you cannot go put your team all the way to the rebuild. It'll be affect too much that kind
Yeah,
of
the
market.
mark.
I don't know if you feel if you agree with me or not, but I think that would be hurt their situation.
Any team
Yeah,
that's looking at any team that's looking
they
at
can't
what's happening in San Jose is looking at that and saying, okay, that's what we will never do is what San Jose just did, because it's really going to impact their bottom line for several years there until they dig themselves out of that.
especially where you're trying to grow the game, right? It
Yeah,
is in a city that, has hockey ingrained in their DNA, right?
yeah. I'm sorry about that.
Coach, I'm disappointed.
About
We were talking about all the teams, and I was waiting anxiously. Where's Winnipeg? Let's go back and talk about Winnipeg.
the Winnipeg, the Winnipeg Jet. I knew, so I cut it right away after that. Talking about Winnipeg Jet, I think one player who is underrated in NHL is Kyle Connors.
Oh
Oh
yeah,
yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
Um, it's a
lethal.
team play better what my expectation was. Honestly, uh, you have so many rumors during the summer that maybe put the team on the bad side of the standing, isn't or on the performing. Will not expect that whatever the we expect Aleba can trade or Sheffield can trade, and people fall on that trap for the Jet, and finally they sign them, and then they are play a little bit better. I still believe
They,
they took advantage of the Central Division.
Yeah,
yes,
yeah.
yeah, of course. But I still think they would have been significantly improved from last year because I think they addressed the two key things. One was Wheeler, and I think that may have been a big issue. And look at now, he's on a very good team, but he isn't producing. And the second one is Pierre Luc Dubois. Now, I'm not saying anything negative about his hockey ability because I still believe he is a unicorn type of player. But imagine having that type of player in your dressing room night after night that is saying, I want out of Winnipeg. It just gives bad vibes to the entire team. They look at each other different ways.
Not to
it wasn't a healthy situation.
Yeah, like not to nail on San Jose again, but let's compare the two trades that happened this offseason. Okay. It's really quite frightening when you look at it. Winnipeg in that Dupois deal, you're never going to win. Like whenever you're losing the best player, you're probably never going to win the trade, right? But they got a lot of useful pieces back, right? Like I know right
They
now,
did.
yeah. So you have some really good pieces that came back from LA on that deal, but then coach, if you go back and you look at what San Jose got for Carlson, that might go down as one of the worst trades ever. Like if they were willing to hold back a little bit more money, but what did they get back? They got Hoffman, they got a
Hey,
first
hey,
round
hey,
draft.
hey.
I know
Leave Hoffman out of it.
we're not supposed to use that word anymore, but
Well, I
so
think
San
the
Jose.
trade Carlson prior to that was the worst.
Yeah, yeah.
No, oh
That was
yeah, like
bad.
if you look at the whole thing, oh yeah, that makes it even worse.
Yeah,
What they
yeah.
gave up to get Carlson, and then what they ended up getting back for him, what a nightmare, right? So again, not to nail on San Jose, but it shows you how, and like you can go back all the way to the Patrick Waugh trade, right? Like a bad trade can set your organization back years. Ottawa got really lucky in that trade, right? Like, remember they made the really, really bad trade for Matt Duchene, and they ended up losing. Who was it? That's Colorado ended up drafting. Who did they draft third overall? Um,
Which one?
I, so
Peru.
remember Ottawa traded for to Colorado for Duchene, and they gave up their first round pick, and it ended up being a
They don't
lottery
get
pick.
BRAM number 4.
Byron, yeah.
Oh,
So
Byram. Yeah, yeah.
So Ottawa, terrible trade. They get Duchesne. It doesn't work out. They lose the 3rd overall pick. But then they got lucky because they made an amazing trade for Carlson with San Jose, and San Jose made the same mistake that Ottawa made and left their lottery pick unprotected, so they were able to get Stützle, right? So Pierre Dorion got very lucky. Like he probably bought himself another 2-3 years because that trade could have set Ottawa back years and years, but then they kind of ended up breaking even because they got Stützle out of that Carlson trade, right? And they got Norris out of that trade too. Crazy. So anyway, so the reason I bring up San Jose is, Winnipeg, say what you want. I've never been the biggest fan of Shovel-Dayoff, but he's a pretty patient guy. And I think he made a pretty good deal. He got Iafallo. Who is the other kid that's injured right now that's playing for Winnipeg that they got from LA?
It's Kapari and Velarde.
Velarde, yeah. So Velarde is probably
the biggest.
Velarde is definitely the biggest piece. And by the way, Velarde was the guy that Bergevin came this close. If Pacioretty would have waived his no trade clause, Bergevin had made a trade for Velarde and I think a pick for Pacioretty at the draft before he ended up trading it to Vegas for Suzuki, just so you know.
A great point. We have one question, and I have 2 predictions for you to ask you, and then we're going to shut down the show tonight with some kind of problem with the internet. I don't know what's going on. Again, I don't know.
Yeah. Are you still running it on Facebook?
Oh no, I shut down everything about that, so I don't know what. I tried to figure out the problem. I don't know. The only thing I feel maybe is like 3 people at the same time could be buffering the software, but this should not be happen. But that's what only I can see, because if I do it alone, like last night at the game, I never have complaining about buffering.
It's just lately, though. I'd say within the last week and a half or 2.
So
the first time was the night you had Marko. I think it was the first show that you had with Marko, and Enortap was the first night I saw it.
So Friday night, I'm going, like tomorrow night and Friday, I'm alone. I'm going to see what I look like if I'm buffering if I'm buffering alone. Secondly, I would said if I start the show earlier at 8:00, because we changed the time, right? Now we are late, and it makes sense for you guys, but for now, me, it's 9:00. Usually I start at 8:00 the morning here, and we don't have no kind of the buffering at that time. But I don't know, and I don't have no exact answer for that one over there, or the fact
Coach,
I minimize everything.
We can talk offline, but there's certain things you could call your internet provider, and there's certain questions, certain reports that you can get them to run to see if it's your connection, if they're like, it's either your internet connection or your software or your computer, right? It's one or the other.
Is the consistency of the internet
lock?
Like if you say at 40, but it's going like 45, drop at 15, go back at 20, that's the lack of this buffering, I believe.
Yeah, it sounds like more of an internet issue than a software or a computer or hardware.
Yeah, exactly. Right? Definitely about that one there. So question for Oli said for the panel tonight, do you think the NHL is more competitive in the modern area and is harder to predict game now? I think I have some kind of parity I never expect this year. Like you have a lot of surprise. I know it's only 15 games, 16 games. We're going to have 30 at Thanksgiving, a little bit more. But what do you feel about that?
I think if you look other than the teams that started off like 9-0, like there's some teams that had these really hot starts. But if you look down the stat sheets and everything, most teams it's like 1-1-1, 1-2. Like if you look at their last 3 games, there's so much parity. There's not a lot of teams that are stringing huge winning streaks together, other than those couple teams that have really strong starts. So yeah, it's a very competitive league. Any team can beat anyone, at this point. So yeah, I said this last show, Coach, but I can't remember having fun watching more fun watching hockey. It's just so fun. I know it's because we have a great community. I'm always excited to kind of connect with you guys and talk about the things that I've watched and everything. So, it's nice to have friends and family to watch hockey with, but having a whole community of people to share, kind of what you're noticing. It's kind of like being in a hockey pool, right? Like, you're in a hockey pool because it enhances the experience of watching the games. So not only do we have a great hockey pool here, but we have a whole community of people that are excited to talk about hockey. So not only is hockey more exciting, but it's exciting because we get to share it together, and it's a lot of fun.
Enortap, I will switch you to the next question for you. Ron, bring me an email, and then I want to share with you what is the worst trade that Janat from Nashville for 5 picks in return for Tampa Bay Lightning, or the Pierre-Luc Dubois to the Winnipeg to the Los Angeles Kings?
Of those two, see, I think the Pierre-Luc Dubois trade sort of benefited both teams, right? I mean, he wasn't going to stay in Winnipeg, and I think LA needed that type of player in their system. It's what they were lacking. They're really strong up the middle now, so that's going to take them far. And he seems to be content. He got the money he wanted. He got the term he wanted. Apparently, it's where he wants to be. So we get rid of that element of, is this guy a red flag or not? By the same token, Winnipeg got pretty much a line, an entire line that came over from LA, and that gave them the depth that they needed, that they were lacking last year, I thought. And like I said before, they lost.
Starting to get more lag on my internet right now here. So I don't know. See, I froze you guys. So it looked like the VPN is. See, I lost both of them, guys, and that's conclude the show tonight because the internet lost the VPN. There we go, Marko. Enortap, welcome back.
What happened there, Coach?
The VPN. Brandy said, turn off the VPN. I turned off the VPN. I lost both of you guys at the same time. So we cannot turn off the VPN. That's a good thing about that one there. So that's good answer about this one over there. And I cannot back. Have a good night, guys. Marco said about this one over there. That's okay. We are at the end of the show, Mr. Enortap. Again, Mr. Enortap, thanks so much about this. I don't know. Stay with me a little bit longer, Mr. Enortap. And sure. We're going to do, hold on here. I'm going to try to bring you here with me. Here we go. The people now on the chat, we have about 16 people. Let me know if it's a little bit no buffering, too on no buffering for real.
No buffering. Interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting. I wonder if it could be that.
Yeah. So, it's not the right things to do, but at the end of the day, it could be. That was I was asking you earlier, like if I do the game play-by-play, if I'm buffering or not.
Sometimes you are not as much as when we're live, but sometimes I see it that way. Unfortunately, but it's not as often. It's not as often as it is when we do the locker room and report and the Montreal report.
Everybody talk right now said it's good right now. So the question, Mr. Enortap, is it Marko or is it because we are 3?
You're gonna have to fire both of us.
About that one, the Oilers guys scored a goal, 3-2 now for Oilers. About this one over there. Working fine now. Marko is gone. Malik said.
We found the answer. There we go.
It could be that one. So we're going to do testing, Mr. Enortap, like tomorrow and Friday night when I'm alone, and see what we look like, everything like that. And maybe if Friday you're around, maybe invite you for 10-15 minutes, stay with me, talking about the prediction, everything like that, just to testing the software to see.
Okay.
I would not like to change the time. I think 9 o'clock is a good time about that. I just feel bad. It's something when Marco D'Amico was with you guys too. It's not Marco.
Yeah, I mean, again, we were
That
3
one over
people,
there.
so maybe that's it, right? Maybe it's something with the software, coach. I don't.
I honestly I don't know why this way, but I would definitely back it with that. I have a really good connection with the owners of this software, so I can talk to him directly. So I would ask him if he have those kind. Sometimes I ask him. Other people have some kind of problem I have, right? So I just want to share it with you about that one over there. So we'll see what's happening
Just
about this one over there. And I have a question for both of them at the end because people was talking about this. November 4th, 15, Mr. Enortap. We are 1 week before
yes.
Thanksgiving. By the way, next week will be fun to do that for sure. Do you expect Oilers make the playoff or not?
It's going to be a hard hill to climb for them. I think they're at 9 points right now because they're 4-9-1, I believe. And so they're already 8 points behind St. Louis, who's in a wild card position. Now, when you look at St. Louis and the other wild card team, which is Anaheim, I mean, Anaheim, I didn't anticipate that they would be where they are right now. So I do suspect that they might fall off a little bit. St. Louis, I do anticipate that they'll drop off. Question is, are there any other teams in between there? For example, Arizona. That could be a good one. Calgary, who knows if they start to improve and get the goaltending that they have been getting. Like those teams will stick around, and nobody anticipated quite Vancouver to be at
The
that
middle
spot
of
either.
them, right? The position
Yeah,
7, 8 to 12, 13, because they are honestly 15, 14. This is where
yeah,
they have to figure out to go all around everybody.
yeah. And I mean, the good thing is they do have the talent, right? I think if they can just tweak a couple things and address a couple of issues that they're having, they do have the talent that could catapult them to at the very least a wild card position.
Yeah.
And I'd hate to be a top team going into the playoffs and having to play Edmonton first round. That would be a tough one
I don't
to
know. I
contend
think
with.
I don't know if I said that or last week we turned that I said the Oilers going to make the playoff like number 8 and going to kick out the number 1.
Yeah, yeah.
I said it was a dream or something like I will look about that, everything like that. The next Tuesday and Thursday, no game scheduled in NHL. William McClary about that one over there. That's here. They're glad to hear that. William, Thursday, guys, don't forget is the the Turkey Awards NHL Hockey Nation. I'm going to do that next week. I tried to go back on my formula last week. Last year, I tried to figure out maybe, Mr. Enortap, I'm going to do some kind of vote live Tuesday night to give us the 16 or 8 top team and the 8 top forward or goalies or defensemen are. And you have a lot of candidates this year, Mr. Enortap, by the way.
A lot of
The candidate to be the Turkey
candidates,
Awards,
yeah.
like like a guy
Yeah.
like Johnny Gaudreau, Jonathan Huberdeau.
Huberdeau, yeah.
They have a
Yeah,
couple of. Well,
there's
you'd
a
be
few.
shocked to see those line kind of lists for that one there. I know Kokanemi is not going to be there for this year
No,
about that
no,
one over
probably
there.
not.
So look like he said buffering right now. So I don't know.
Oh, that's
It's
interesting.
about that one over there, but maybe another freezing, Conning. I hope not. 2 weeks until they see. We don't know honestly that one, but Mr. Enortap. Anyhow, we're going to conclude the show, Mr. Enortap. We wish you an amazing, great night. I look forward to see you next time, my friend.
Thank you, Coach.
And I will conclude the show by myself, so we'll see what's happening.
Okay, good night, Hockey Nation. Good night, Coach.
Thanks so much, and Mr. Enortap. It was Mr. Enortap. You will leave the building at that moment, guys. I will conclude the show. I apologize. I don't know. I have no answer to figure out the internet right now. It is what it is, unfortunately. Challenge live at the city. We'll see what happening. No buffering here for Roy. Just one buffer, Coach Joe Manella. No lag here. Everything like good night, Gary Cornoyer. Mr. Enortap, everybody. You are awesome. You are amazing. You are the best. And remember, you have greatness inside of you. We have greatness inside of you. Thanks so much, Ron, for all those questions tonight. The internet's fixed for RJ, and we have a lot of people in the chat. Good night, everybody. We apologize. Hopefully, we're going to fix this the next couple of days and see what is the biggest problem. It's sad because we have so much great content to talk about tonight, and we have a couple of great people pop up at the beginning, and they have to leave because of the internet situation. So, it is what it is. Until the next time, my friend, be well. Be healthy. Find a way to not only dominate your day, but find a way to dominate the second half of the internet. What? Your 2023, like many of you would tell me about that one there. Wish you an amazing great night. We want to thank all the moderators tonight. Many of you was with us tonight. We thank every one of you. And then we want to thank the co-hosts Enortap and Marko for the choice for them to leave the building earlier. And all the people was with us tonight. Don't forget to click on the like if you don't mind. We appreciate a lot for your patience and to be still a great fans of the Hockey Nation and Ab Nation. Until next time, my friend, be back tomorrow night, 7 o'clock. Game Montreal Canadiens versus the biggest goal tonight. And my video today is going to be about we cannot score. Don't forget that video. Until next time, have an amazing great night. And of course, Hockey Nation and Ab Nation want to tell you one more thing. We love you, people. Have a great night, everybody.
Come on, get a grip now of all the ways we parted. You showed in your own way we would stand and we would fall united. Come on, get a grip now. Just finish what you started. Don't like the feeling that I've been fooled, deceived, and so misguided. Oh, oh, oh. What do I know? What's going on now? Is this another breakdown? You and me, should I let go? I do really want to know what's going on now. Is this
Good night,
another
Sebastian.
breakdown? You and me, should I say so? We're just putting on a show. What's going on
Good night,
now?
KLS.
Is this another breakdown? You and me, should I let go? I do
Thanks, Enortap. Have a good one, KLS. RJ Calabro. Luc Laporcine. Oh, 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 oh. Booyah!